Mizzou football kicked off its season with a 51-0 dominating win over Murray State. I have been saying a lot about this game in my recap content of it, that it was decided in the first four plays, but really it was decided whenever this game was scheduled. Missouri or Murray State was going to be a sacrificial lamb for this game. And Missouri, for all the expectations going into this game, they covered the spread. Great performances for many players on the team. I'm Joey Van Zummeren. Joining me is my other football reporter, Michael Stamps, to talk about it all. Michael, first, just your general thoughts on the game, and then we'll talk kind of about our some specific thoughts.
I can't say it was a fun watch. I mean, it was a football game. Like you said, and I mean, Coach Drinkwitz said as well. They had it figured out within the first four plays of the game, and no one was surprised to see the amount of scoring we did in the entire game, but even in the first 10 minutes.
Mhm.
So yeah, I think there was some. It was a very well-rounded performance.
Yeah,
Both statistically and just effort wise and plays that didn't show up on the stat sheet. But I think there were some that maybe stood out a little bit more than others, but really a very well-rounded performance. Can't say there's much to take away and use
hmm
this from. It's nice to see a result of what we've been talking about for the last 4 weeks, but yeah, no real surprises at all. This is exactly, I think, what everyone expected to happen.
exactly. Kind of what we talked about last week of the fans selling out this game. Of if you're going to be a top team in the SEC, this is what you do. You blow out these FCS teams. And so one of the main things in this game, and one of the biggest questions that we've been talking about all offseason long, is what the running back split was going to look like. We heard from Eli Drinkwitz this past Sunday that it was going to be Nate Noel as the main guy and then Marcus Carroll as kind of that power feature back, and that definitely ended up being the case in this game. Nate Noel, I believe he took every single carry on the first two drives or just around there, had that touchdown on the second drive. Really impressed with his performance, really impressed with, I think, Marcus Carroll. I was more surprised with seeing him in person compared to Noel. Um, Really strong performance by all five Missouri running backs that contributed. Michael, just your thoughts on that group.
Yeah, Carroll really stood out to me. Like you said, Noel's been advertised as the, quicker, more shifty, speedy back. Carroll kind of the third down, punch it in, power back. But he had a couple cuts. There was like two on the same play, um, where he looked much faster than advertised. Like
hmm
that was a pleasant surprise. And I think, you know, scouting him from the opposite team, he might look like that power back, but he definitely has some quickness to him. It was nice to see Lacey Roberts and Jones get involved. I think Lacey had 42 rushing yards. And granted, it was garbage time, so take that for what it's worth. It's still good to see him on the field. Another thing that really stood out with the running backs, mainly probably majority Carroll and Noel, was the work they put in the receiving game. They both had multiple receptions. I think Noel had around 40 receiving yards or somewhere around that number. So they both put up numbers in the receiving game, which just adds another, facet to this offense. And it's nice to have guys like that you can dump the ball off to, especially when you're going to have three, four targets on the field in the receiver position and tight end as well, who can make plays. That's what they're known for. Having someone like Noel and even Carroll. Carroll did it today as well. So it's nice to have that kind of secondary or backup option when it comes to the receiving game. So I was thoroughly impressed. Probably the most impressive position group of the day, and Carroll was 1,000% to stand out.
Yeah, what you mentioned about them in the receiving game as well. I mean, we had seen in a few practices Nate Noel lining up as wide receiver, so interesting to see that be an actual thing they're running in these games as well. And I think too, you also saw Brady Cook already have, like you said, Michael, or you can't take so much away from this game, but could already kind of see that Brady Cook had a solid connection established with Noel and Carroll. I thought Brady Cook, again, you got to take this all with a grain of salt. I thought Brady Cook really looked really nice today, except on the two deep throws that he had, but those were really just chuck it up for Jesus balls to Marquise Johnson and Luther Breeden in the second quarter there. But I thought Brady, I know we're supposed to talk about running backs, but Brady, he had a few plays where he's under pressure. Most of the time he had all day to throw, but there was a few plays where he had a defense tackle chasing him. Looked really calm there. Improvement from last year. So again, always excited to see the growth that Brady Cook can make. As far as the running backs, like I said, how they can help out in the receiving game. What you said about Carroll as well, just how shifty he is. That was a big surprise for me. Like I mentioned, Jamal Roberts, who I've been campaigning for all fall camp, really another guy that can help it out in the receiving game as well. And Tavares Jones was someone coming into this game that we hadn't heard much about, especially compared to Jamal Roberts, kind of his direct comparison in the running back room, even though they're different players, just as far as notoriety. And Jones, we hadn't heard much about. He had a few plays where he was doing some motion in the backfield. Um, no carries notable off the top of my head, but tomorrow I'm gonna pull some coach speak and say I'm gonna have to look back at the tape to see the smaller details because third and fourth quarter was more focused on getting some stories done other than writing the second and third screens in there. But some of those guys that did impress on second and third string were on the defense, and really defense as a whole in their first showing in Corey Batoon's system. Really strong performance. Michael, some of those guys that stood out to you tonight.
I think the main one, in those first strings was Corey Flagg. He was all over the place. He made two very notable tackles. One, I think the one that's going to send to everyone, it was that tackle for loss on the Murray State running back. He, seemingly came out of nowhere, so he kind of displayed his athleticism for a 2 yard tackle for loss, and he was just all over the place and kind of displayed some leadership as well. Obviously, I mean, Toriano Pride didn't dominate the stat sheet but had a ridiculously athletic interception for the third score of the game, I believe. That really kind of got the juices flowing for that team. So he looked pretty good, and not that much of the Murray State receiving game, put on a full display, but Pride did his job. And then Tristan Newsom as well. He's a veteran presence. He's gonna get the job done. Him and Flag both had 5 tackles, I
Mhm.
believe. So just some good veteran leadership there. Chris McClellan was another one. He had that sack and forced fumble that put the Tigers in excellent field position. So that was another name to look at. But plenty of guys,
Mhm.
got put up good numbers. I think I wrote in a story just a couple minutes ago about Brayshawn Littlejohn and Nicholas Rodriguez, two guys you definitely haven't heard much about. Flag mentioned him in the post game press conference how impressed he was with their performance. They both had a couple tackles. So it was another one of those things, very well rounded. I think Flag and Newsom really cemented themselves as those important linebackers on the team, though.
Yeah, exactly. The Eli Drinkwitz in his post-game press conference, he said, watching all those freshmen, young guys out there, he said it's going to be a hell of a defense in this team in 2 or 3 years from now. And I would agree with him with all the ta young talent they got. And I feel like they're in a good place right now defensively. Obviously, they're kind of using the transfer portal, and this is all college football teams, but having to use the transfer portal in a similar way that NFL teams use free agency, or at least the NFL teams that are smart and are good at drafting, being able to draft, but then also filling in those errors in drafts when they have their misses. They pick up those guys through the transfer portal, and also just production that they're losing. So interesting mix on this defense right now. Pretty much a entire new look just with personnel wise. Like you mentioned with Pride on his pick six. I mean, it's a terrible pass, but
Awful, awful, awful
yeah,
pass. That's a Madden mistake. You don't make
seriously.
that. You don't make that throw ever.
Yeah, and so Zion Young pressured on him on that, which I thought was cool
Yes.
transfer to transfer help. But from that play from Pride, he was on zone coverage. He's like 2 or 3 yards off from the receiver, and the receiver. I mean, it's a terrible play by the
Yeah.
receiver too, not to jump in front of him. But Toriano, really good job. Again, it's a terrible pass. He's not going to have this in SEC play, but really quick moving over there and reading that ball perfectly, getting the perfect angle on it, and then just taking it to the house. Like you mentioned, Corey Flagg, I was really impressed with his game. Chris McClellan, just a force, really the biggest body on that in the main rotation for the defensive line. Marquise Graciel might be kind of up there too, but Chris McClellan is just a force. Saw Eddie Kelly in there a little bit. Zion Young was the starting right end opposite Johnny Walker. So great performance by the defense overall. I really liked the performance by Marvin Burks too, just flying all over the field. And I'm excited that this Missouri secondary definitely has a lot of talent. And really for the defense as a whole, as we've been talking, just so many guys that can be role players, and that's a luxury to have guys that you can really just plug and play them and when they're best suited and not force them into situations that they're not best suited for. So that's the defense. Offense dominated really the first few series of this game, and I mean, defense, special teams helped out as well in that, but this game, like I said at the top, was not only decided when Missouri State agreed to come to Columbia a few years ago, but was also decided in the first few plays. And we could tell after that. I mean, even after the onside kick, and then Missouri just struts right down the field to score. That it was going to be a long night. What were your reaction? I mean, Trinkwitz, I thought it was funny. He talked last week of how big of a challenge it is to prepare for Murray State, and then he said tonight they had him figured out in 4 plays.
Yeah, I don't prepared or not prepared. There's a huge,
Hmm.
not to sound disrespectful. There's just a huge talent discrepancy between the two teams. So this is exactly what should have happened. But they 1,000% look prepared. So whatever they did and whatever information they had, they looked ready. And really, the Murray State offense the entire night couldn't do much,
Hmm.
and they were able to get some stops. Obviously that second quarter scoring wise slowed down a lot. I think there was only one touchdown, one score in the second quarter, so maybe two. But so not a lot of scoring after that big flurry. It was kind of spread out. But what a way to just get out and punch a team in the mouth, scoring 21 points in the
Yeah.
first 6-7 minutes, and to get it done on offense and defense as well, passing game and the receiving game, excuse me, and the running game. So it was a I've said this multiple times already. It was a great distribution of what this team can do. We didn't even
Hmm.
I mean, Luther Burden
Oh man.
didn't even seem like a factor, but he still had, three receptions for 39
Yes.
yards, and that touchdown catch, I think, is a full picture of who he is as a
Hmm.
player. Catches the pass, pretty relatively easy throw, but catches the pass, stops in a dime, makes a defender miss, and high steps into the end zone. So that is again a perfect, encapsulation of who he is and what he can do. And he did, he grabbed two more receptions or whatever that was after, but wasn't much of a impact or a difference maker outside of that first touchdown, and they still won by 51 points. So if I mean, obviously not going to be the case, but that just goes to show the depth and talent of this team. We don't need to go into the receiving room. Everyone did their part.
Hmm.
So, yeah, I mean, just not much to say, not a lot of really deep diving information.
No one needs to hear how good Luther Burden is at
Yeah,
this point in time. However, it is mesmerizing watching him in non-conference play, especially. I mean, it happens in SEC play too, even against the toughest defenses. But this year and last year, watching him against these sacrificial lamb teams, unbelievable. I mean, he really keeps you on your toes because there's a lot of plays where I'll look down because I'll be like, okay, the play's over. I'm gonna get back to riding or doing whatever I was doing. And then I look up and then he's like juking out the fifth defender and giving a fan a bag of his chips on the way. So I mean, again, nobody needs to hear how talented Luther Burden is, but it's just really on display and on those first few drives, full of those making magic happen plays for Luther. So yeah, like you mentioned, Michael, this offense, I feel like that was really their test run. Make sure all the things are working out. Although starters stayed in there pretty long, but
too long maybe.
yeah, I don't disagree. I was questioning the decision to have Brady Cook run in a touchdown, a quarterback design run at the end of the second half, but you know,
We don't call the plays.
yeah, exactly. But any other takeaways from this game,
Um,
Michael? I'm sure we're both very tired at this point.
Yeah, very tired. It's pushing 1 o'clock, so it's been a long
Hmm.
day. I guess one last thing I'll say, the Buffalo Bulls did win their first
Hmm.
opening matchup, I believe against Lafayette. Not that that means a whole lot, but this is going to be a team where they have returning
Yeah.
talent. I believe they have the same head coach, but maybe I'm wrong there. So this is going to be a more scoutable team and a team that
Yes.
uh, we can preview, both the team and us. So there's going to be more stuff there. And one thing we should also mention, Theo Weiss and Brett Norfleet obviously got a little banged up. There in the second half, Norfleet didn't get to do much. It sounds like they're okay.
Yeah.
Not not a definitive yes or no, but I believed his exact words where he's not Coach Drinkwitz is not necessarily alarmed
Hmm.
by anything. So that's always good news.
Yeah, exactly. I think those were just, like you said, extra precaution. No need to throw them back out there in the line of fire. But also what you mentioned about Buffalo, I know the one thing off the top of my head just from previewing them on the off season, their quarterback, really talented dude. I don't remember his name. But
I
mobile
just looked
guy.
at it.
Yeah, mobile guy. And like I said, I think with Missouri's schedule, it's going to be a challenge building up week by week. And obviously the jump from Boston College, Vanderbilt to Texas A&M is a much bigger jump than Murray State to Buffalo. But each week, like Drinkwitz mentioned, going to be a new challenge, going to be higher stakes. So we'll be along with you for the ride here on Missouri on SI. Make sure you continue to check out all the coverage we have on our YouTube channel and then the website as well. So we appreciate you tuning in, and we'll talk to you later.